Joining me now on set is Akayla Gardner, White House correspondent for Bloomberg News. Cornell Belcher is with us, Democratic pollster and NBC News political analyst. And Sarah Chamberlain, president and CEO of the Republican Main Street Partnership. So, Akayla, I'll start with you. We've been talking about this lead. It is strong. It is durable. Is the race in Iowa now just for second place? Do we need to just change how we're talking about this?
If it's for second place, it's a distant second based on this poll. And I think the biggest loss is for Ron DeSantis, as we just heard in the last segment from Steve. He visited all 99 counties. He was really hoping that was going to be able to get him enough support to, even as his campaign said, they just wanted a strong second place finish. And 19% is not exactly what they were looking for. He has the endorsement of the governor. He has this top evangelical leader. Trump in this poll still leads with evangelical voters, which are key in the state. And I think it's just a huge loss for him. And also for Nikki Haley, who has really had this big boost in national attention. She was also in a distant third place.
She seems like the one who still has room to grow. But Sarah, if you're Ron DeSantis, you've done everything you're supposed to do in Iowa. You got the governor's endorsement, as Akayla was just saying. Right. The voters are even saying, we like you, but we really just don't want you to be president right now. What, if anything, can Ron DeSantis do differently? Or are the voters telling him, hey, maybe call us again in 2027?
I think the voters are telling him, call us again in 2027, and maybe he should drop out. I mean, I hate to see him. He is going to lose, and it will be a distant second. And if he wants to be the top runner in 2028, maybe he should get out now and kind of save a little of integrity and then run in 3.5 years.
Cornell, go ahead.
As a pollster, though, I do want to caution us. Polls are a snapshot, as you've talked about, and sometimes polls get wrong because they get the electorate wrong. What I will say is that regardless of the poll, Donald Trump's numbers have been fairly consistent and large. And look, there's a difference here between sort of, for us in polling, is how do you get to 50+1? Because when you get to 50+1, you win, right? And so I don't care about what the margin is. But what I've seen consistently in Donald Trump is, and this is the poll that I think is important because he's now at a margin where they can't catch him, right? Even regardless of who drops out of this race, they can't overtake him, which is a really, really powerful position. But I wanted to make that sort of clarification for our audience, because I think there's way too much talk about polling, way too much coverage of polling, and a lot of people don't understand polling.
Right. Polls at this stage aren't right or wrong. They just tell you a thing today that may not still be true when we actually start voting.
Well, as someone who worked for Obama, a lot of the polls early on were not true of what actually happened in that race.
Fair enough. I want to read for you something that I think encapsulates the electability problem in this race, and it's not the electability problem that we thought we'd have. This is from one of the voters who participated in our poll. This voter said, I think a ham sandwich could probably win a general election against Joe Biden, and it's all Biden's fault. This was from Aaron Mann of Fort Madison, Iowa, who said he's caucusing for Trump. The other Republican candidates all thought they could make a Trump can't win argument. That does not seem to be the case here. Biden's relative weakness is rocket fuel for Trump at this stage, is it not?
I think so. And I think that quote we just saw from the voter underscores there's just a huge segment of voters who do not want to see a rematch of Biden and Trump again. And I also think the economy continues to weigh down the president. They continue to say that inflation, high prices, those are the things that are top of mind. And right now, voters simply do not trust the president on the issue of the economy. And Donald Trump, frankly, is associated with a time where the economy was better before the pandemic and, frankly, before even Biden took office.
But, Sarah, if you're a DeSantis stan and you're a big DeSantis donor, is your money better spent propping up Joe Biden right now than it is to Ron DeSantis? Because the whole argument was supposed to be from DeSantis, Trump is too flawed, he's too divisive, he may be in jail, you need an electable me to beat Joe Biden. But if all these Republican voters think a ham sandwich could beat Joe Biden, they're going to vote for the ham sandwich they know and love, and that's Donald Trump.
They are. So if I was a DeSantis donor, I'd probably now go to Trump at this point. Why would I go to Biden? Trump is clearly in the lead. He is probably going to be the nominee unless he goes to jail. I mean, that's really what this is. So I think they're going to start to jump back to Trump. And, and Biden, I don't think Trump is beating Biden. I think Biden's beating himself.
Well, let's go to our pollster on that question, because we do have new polls today in some of these swing states, Cornell, from CNN, that show the president struggling against Donald Trump in both Georgia and in Michigan. How do you see the picture of the theoretical general election?
Well, again, I worked for a guy in 2011 who the headline said, you know, he was toast.
I
Right?
remember that.
And he was running behind Mitt Romney, and he was actually tied with.
I think he ran ahead of Mitt Romney pretty much the whole
Not in the
way.
New York Times poll. In the New York Times poll in 2011, at this same time, he was running behind Mitt
okay.
Romney. Believe me, I know.
I know. You're more mentally scarred by that than I am, I'm sure.
I had to live through it. But again, it's about the story that the president has to tell. You know, did Obama have a good story to tell? And to your point about the economy, look, Republicans are always better on the economy in voters' minds. But what we did in Obama's campaign was what we made it about who's going to fight for the middle class, right? Because Mitt Romney had a natural advantage on the economy. And I think this president has actually a better story to tell about the economy and moving the country in a direction even better than Barack Obama. And particularly when it comes to, as you know, it's going to be the contrast. It's going to be the contrast between what Donald Trump has to offer versus what Joe Biden has to offer. And those dynamics haven't unfolded yet.
To the degree they haven't unfolded, though, some of that, I think, is on the White House, right? We've not seen the president really roll out his campaign in a lot of early states. They've spent some money on the air. What do you make of the way in which they are telling the story that they have to
I hear
tell?
this from reporters all the time, and it's not a 50-yard dash. It's a marathon. They can't spend all their money now, and quite frankly, most Americans aren't paying attention. But they have a plan to start spending the money and telling that conversation, particularly as the primaries begin to end on the Republican side. I would never advise a campaign to start spending tons of money communicating right now. It has to be a slow burn.
One of the other things that could change the dynamic in this race is the impeachment inquiry that's about to get formalized later this week. Akayla, I'm curious your view on this. If Republicans start down this path, I don't know how they get off it. I cannot imagine a scenario in which House Republicans will vote to acquit Joe Biden. But when they start down this, how does the impeachment question, based on what we've seen of their efforts so far, help or hurt the president's reelection in your view?
I think what's just frustrating for the White House right now is they really thought this was not something that was going to materialize. But we've seen now more centrist Republicans, more moderate Republicans willing to be able to formalize this, even if just for the fact that it would give subpoenas more teeth, it would give them the ability to get more evidence. But I think Republicans are really going to use this to sort of undermine any Democratic attacks against the president's 2 impeachments, as well as his multiple myriad of legal challenges. But I don't know if it actually resonates with voters. I don't think this is something that's top of mind for people that are going to cast their ballots in 2024.
This is what drives me crazy about the House Republican strategy here, because it's the kind of folks you represent, the Republican Main Street Partnership, who are going to have to own this. And we're going to vote for an inquiry because we're just asking questions. Only flies if you can stop the inquiry if you find that the answers are not sufficient to impeach. Can your members get out of that trap if 6 months from now it turns out there really is no evidence that Joe Biden did anything impeachable?
Absolutely, and that's the plan. If there's nothing there, then they will not ever vote to impeach him. 100%.
All right.
They do need
We're
to
saving that tape because
I will.
I'm not,
That's
I'm
fine.
not totally sure I believe
I will
there.
guarantee you that. But they have to get information, and the White House has not been forthcoming. So I agree with what they're doing here in this first step.
Is there an impeachment trap here, Cornell?
I'm going to follow what Mitt Romney said at this very table yesterday, and there's no there. There's not a lot of evidence on this, and I think Republicans will be better served by focusing on issues that are important to America. And again, like Chip Roy said, what do we have to take to the American people to run on? And it can't be Hunter Biden, and it can't be impeachment. It has to be something about the economy. And I guess, again, they ran a lot on crime and safety. I haven't seen their crime and safety bill.
But on all due respect to Mitt Romney, we don't know yet. That we have to do the research to find out if there isn't anything there.
But you do that before you start an impeachment.
Well,
but we're not getting everything answered.
How many impeachment inquiry angels can dance on the head of a pin? I'm going to give Akayla one last bite at our top story here, because tomorrow is going to be kind of another Ukraine day here in Washington with Zelensky here in town, meeting with the president. Do you think Zelensky can move the needle? What do we need to see happen from these meetings here to get the aid that he so desperately wants unlocked?
I think the contrast is just even look a year ago when Zelensky came to Washington in December. He received a hero's welcome. He addressed a joint session of Congress. It's probably going to look a lot more like September, where he had very closed-door meetings, now with a new speaker in Mike Johnson, who actually voted against Ukraine funding after that visit in September. So it's much of the same, but also you can just not be sure if Zelensky is going to be able to get enough support around funding. I think there's not enough evidence to say that he can't.
All right, that Mike Johnson meeting is the one I'm going to be watching for. Akayla, Sarah, and Cornell Belcher, we have to leave it there.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.